Okay, let's go.
So we're going to close tonight's show right here in the Commonwealth because a story broke out of Louisville this week, just last night, that every college sports fan in Kentucky and across the country needs to understand. University of Louisville Athletic Director Josh Heird stood before the university's Board of Trustees and laid out a projected budget deficit for the coming fiscal year approaching $30 million.
Unbelievable.
Not hidden, not buried in accounting footnotes, presented transparently, give him credit for that, with the university's president, board chair, and chief financial officer all in the room. According to WDRB's reporting, Louisville's FY 2027 budget projects expenses that outpace revenue by nearly $30 million. In fact, $31 million in some places we've heard, a number that could be reduced by as much as $9 million, depending on different revenue opportunities, but remains staggering by any measure. This comes on the heels of a FY 2026 deficit that also hovered close to $30 million, which was patched together through, and this is crazy, a $10 million one-time transfer from the university's general fund, a new $200 per student athletic fee on the backs of the kids.
So let's go into each one of these points when you get done.
A $25 million line of credit from PNC Bank. University President Gerry Bradley made one thing clear to trustees, that general fund transfer is not happening again. Well, we've heard that from politicians.
Right.
Louisville Athletics reserves, which once sat at a comfortable $34 million once, have been drawn down to just $3.4 million total. And a Louisville athletic director, Josh Heird, summed up the impossible position every Power 4 athletic department now occupies with one of the truest sentences spoken in college sports this year. If you stop spending now, then you lose.
Lose athletically. This is the athletic department budget, correct?
Yep.
Not the entire university budget.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
If you stop spending now, you lose. Think about what Josh Heird is actually saying there. You cannot cut your way out of this problem, because the moment you stop spending on talent, your revenue collapses with it. Your TV money, your ticket sales, your donor base, all of it tied to winning. So you borrow, you spend, and the deficit grows. Craig, is there any exit ramp from that logic?
No. I mean, Louisville's games are sold out, and we'll go over other universities in here too, including UK. That's in this list. So this ain't just a Louisville thing. It's just the Louisville is $30 million. That's, and if I understand correctly from what I've read before, they had a 2-year, $25 million loan that they could draw down, and they blew through it quick, right?
That's correct. With PNC
and that's what's getting them to the $30 million in the hole.
Right.
Their athletic budget. And according to the 2025 Knight Commission National FBS, whatever that stands for, the football thing, Louisville is number 8 with a $13 million. This is 2025. So this, yeah, there you go. You got it right there. And on an athletic budget, this is unbelievable what the athletic budget is. $160 million. So now they outspent their budget of $912 million, and now they got to hit the students up for a $200 fee. So these NIL athletes can make millions, and the fans can pay more ticket prices and hot dog prices and beer prices. Where is this even remotely fair?
Well, it's not, and it's
the only ones winning is the athletes.
That's absolutely correct. Louisville's president and AD have been saying publicly for months that their situation is not the exception. It is now the rule. That the data backs them up. Ohio State University, we have some guys who watch that are Ohio State fans, one of the biggest athletic brands in America with one of the largest football stadiums in the world, reported a $37.7 million loss in the same year it won a national championship.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's not even the worst part. Penn State is carrying more than $534 million in athletics-related debt. $500 million. The University of Michigan is projected
Look at Oklahoma.
Yeah, Michigan has a $15 million deficit. Florida State is sitting on $437 million in athletics related debt. These are not struggling mid major programs. These are flagship universities at the top of the Power Four food chain. The reason is structural. The House versus the NCAA settlement finalized in 2025 now requires schools to directly compensate athletes through revenue sharing to the tune of approximately $21 to $22 million per school per year at the Power Four level. This is a mandatory new line item that did not exist 3 years ago. Add
Yep.
the explosion in coaching salaries. Louisville's football coach salary nearly doubled to $6 million in 4 years and
$6 million per year.
per year, and a massive buyout packages that ran $270 million conference wide last season alone. And you have a business model that is breaking down in real time. 21 of Louisville's 23 sports currently operate at a loss, with individual deficits ranging from $4 to $6 million per program. Craig, Ohio State loses $37 million and wins the national title in the same year. Penn State's sitting at $500 million in debt. Louisville's reserves are essentially gone at this point. They're at 1/10 of what they were. These are not small schools struggling to keep the lights on. These are the most powerful athletic programs in the country. We haven't even gotten to Kentucky yet. At what point does someone in Washington or the NCAA, Ted Cruz, who's been lobbying for these changes,
Hard. He's been going hard at it. Yeah.
whatever the NCAA successor organization may be, when are they going to say it out loud? The entire financial model of college sports is broken and it has to change.
Well, if you could see this list, I know it's hard to see it on screen, but it's 112 schools, and about 45 of them are showing a profit. And the whole profit go down to the best ones, University of Alabama.
I can't add that.
Yeah, they got a $267 million budget, and they spent less than that. Total revenue $267 million. They're showing a $32,696 in the black.
Well, look at Florida. You and I talked about Florida.
Florida, yeah,
Good.
Florida's the next one. Right before Alabama, and they're $221 million total revenue, and they're $20 million and $20,065,000 in the black. So after spending $250 million in 1 year, they only net $20 and $32 million respectively. And then I'm gonna go up here and find Kentucky. I know we're in the top 20, I think.
We're at number 13.
Okay, yeah, there we are.
Number 13.
$185 million, and we're $7.4 million in the hole.
Yeah.
After bringing in $185 million in revenue, we're still almost $7 million in the hole. How does that even happen? If that's a business, you know what happens at business? They file bankruptcy.
Well,
what are these universities going to do?
You remember years ago when the NCAA would come down hard on a program, and the big one you always wanted to avoid was lack of institutional control.
Right.
If this isn't a lack of institutional financial control at these schools, I don't know what would qualify for that.
Yeah, 47 universities on this list of 112 are in the red. And
of them,
Oklahoma.
These are not small schools. These are major schools.
Have you ever heard of it's Rutgers. Okay, it's got that screen over. Rutgers is $47 million in the hole. Oklahoma's $49 million in the hole. How do you do that?
Well, and how do you do it when you're already $500 million in the hole like Penn State is? Like, how do you continue to go, $10 million in the hole when you're already struggling? It's something that I'll never understand. But because of this and the way that this has come out, it's now starting to leak out into Lexington publications and news outlets. You're going to hear it here first. We're going to bring it home to Big Blue Nation what this means, because Kentucky is not immune to any of this. Last year, UK's Board of Trustees Athletics Committee approved a plan to lend the athletics department, this is going to blow your mind, $141 million, $110 million for capital projects and facility upgrades, and an additional $31 million in operating funds to offset projected deficits across fiscal years 25 and 26. The Kentucky Athletic Department, which WDRB describes as a long model of financial self-sufficiency, would not have contemplated an operating deficit even a few years ago. Today, it's borrowing $31 million from the university just to cover operating shortfalls.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been Kentucky because of Kentucky, the SEC
Yep.
bowl games and SEC money, Kentucky and TV money, Kentucky football and basketball with especially TV money, always covered the whole universities, and they were even taking money out of the athletic budget to fund professorships.
Right. Well,
and apparently that's no longer happening.
Apparently it's not. To adapt, UK became the first school in the country to formally spin off its athletic department into a nonprofit limited liability company, which we have talked about here before, Champions Blue LLC, and move enabled by Senate Bill 3, passed by the Kentucky lawmakers in 2025. The idea now is to operate more like a business, take on strategic debt, pursue new revenue streams, and build a governance structure that can survive the new era. UK President Eli Capilouto calls it a new strategic governance structure and operating model, unlike any in the country. And we've read that before.
I think that's pretty smart, actually, after hearing all this.
Kentucky's
taking the athletic department away from the university itself, that's a smart move.
Yeah, but then you have to think of it this way. Kentucky's basketball roster for 25-26 did cost in the area of $20 million, making it one of the most expensive rosters in college basketball. And the result was a second-round exit.
I think we were number 5.
We are now in a historic 6-year drought without an Elite 8 appearance. The most expensive roster in the sport. We think we're number 5 at this point if you look at the actual numbers.
I was talking about last year. I think we ended up number 5.
Yeah, and zero return on the investment in March. Craig, Kentucky borrowed $31 million to cover operating deficits, spun its entire athletic department into an LLC, and spent $22 million on a basketball roster, we understand, allegedly, because you'll never see those actual numbers.
Right.
They spent somewhere near $20 million. That lost in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Louisville is $30 million in the hole and borrowing to stay competitive. Both schools are right in the Commonwealth, and both are telling us the same thing. The old model is dead. Is Champions Blue the right answer, or is Kentucky just borrowing trouble along with borrowing money at this point?
Well, you look at it from a business point of view, it's non-sustaining. So they're making an attempt, which you got to give them credit for that. With the Champions thing, they're going to start trying to sell more and more stuff. I would say all the UK gear, the hats, all that kind of stuff. Let me go Dark Craig. Like Dark Pope. All the UK stuff will cost more. You know, this hat was $18. It'll probably go to 30,
40,
maybe 40. Yeah, it might. And to fund this, because since they're separated off, I'm going to assume that the university no longer sends no money to the athletic department.
I 100% at this point,
because they spun it off, right?
They're borrowing.
So, what are we going to do if we run short on money for whatever reason? The TV deals go down. ESPN pays less. Are we going to no longer be competitive? Be able to not be the blue blood, but we're not going to be the bank of college basketball that we can pay the best players to come here.
I will give credit where credit is due. Eli Capilouto and the UK board are explaining, what they've done and why they've done it. And now we're seeing the numbers on the back end of why it was so imperative. But I also want to give credit to Louisville. And you guys who know this show, we don't like to give a lot of credit to the University of Louisville. But at least they're being transparent at this point.
Right.
Louisville's leadership has been the most vocal in the country about what needs to happen structurally besides the University of Kentucky, which actually did it. In a white paper co-authored by President Gerry Bradley, AD Josh Heird, and Board Chair Larry Benz, the trio called for 3 things: congressional action, a governing body that can actually govern, and a hard and enforceable spending cap. On congressional action, they are specifically backing the SCORE Act and the SAFE Act, legislation that would establish uniform NIL rules nationally, allow colleges to collectively negotiate media rights, something currently blocked by antitrust laws, which will also be challenged in the courts. We are a decade away from this getting fixed.
Right.
On the spending cap, Louisville is proposing a hard ceiling on institutional spending. Again, it's going to be litigated, not on what athletes can earn through the NIL deals, but on what schools can spend on coaching salaries, staff, operations, and facilities, not limiting on the players. A survey by the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics found that nearly 70% of university presidents and athletic directors support national laws allowing limits on spending. And the Knight Commission's chief executive called Louisville's argument exactly correct, adding, I think they're the first Power Four university to go on the record with these concerns, besides Kentucky, who actually did it. I
Yeah.
and going on to say the counter argument from critics is blunt. This is a spending problem, not a revenue problem. Bloated coaching staffs, astronomical buyouts, and facility arms races are self-inflicted wounds. Mark Stoops with his nearly $40 million buyout. Both
Yeah.
arguments contain truth. And without Congress acting, without a functional governing body replacing the lawsuit paralyzed NCAA, the financial bleeding will continue and it will eventually reach programs that cannot borrow their way out of it. Craig, Louisville is calling for spending caps. Kentucky is restructured as an LLC. Ohio State is losing $37 million. Penn State, $500 million in debt.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and somewhere in the middle of all this is a 17-year-old kid from Serbia who's trying to decide where to play basketball, and the school that can promise him the most money wins. Craig, is college basketball and college football and college athletics in general, is it fixable, or have we already passed the point of no return and we're headed over the cliff at this point?
Well, everything's fixable. Any business can recover. It's the Wild West in college sports right now when they allowed name, image, and likeness stuff to be coming out, and these universities wanting to win so badly that they're spending millions of dollars on 17 and 18-year-olds that have never played a college dribble in a college practice. And yet they're signing them on potential. And, we saw that last year. We had a couple players go down that played just a few games, not their fault of their own. I don't hold those players at fault for signing a $4 million contract. It's the University of Kentucky, even taking the chance. Yeah. Like the NBA, if a trade goes to an NFL and the player does not pass a health exam, the deal's off. Now, I don't know if we did a health exam, but, might be true back in the day, but
they did in the last 2 years.
And then look at, the Kraft family. They're rich. There's no doubt they're rich as hell, but if you're paying millions of dollars, you're building practice facilities, you want some wins.
Yeah.
You're not doing this just out of the goodness of your heart. If you did, you'd build it at Bellarmine, or you'd build it at Kentucky State, or you'd build it at Eastern. But University of Kentucky is a winning program. And if Joe Kraft is wanting to spend tens of millions of his coal money on the University of Kentucky, he's going to want wins, or he just pull back.
Well, they're not able to provide $30 million to cover the deficit.
He could. He's rich.
Well, but there's a
it's not financially responsible.
No, there's a point. My take on this is what Louisville's leadership said publicly before the board of trustees, and they, what the board of is saying, and I give them so much credit because they were going to get hammered today in all of the Louisville and national sports.
Yeah.
X going crazy with this, but they are saying something that the math doesn't work. The math, they're finally saying it out loud. We all knew it. We've all been saying it's unsustainable, but the math doesn't work. It has not worked for years, at least in the last 3. And the only reason it has stayed hidden is the schools have been borrowing, papering over deficits with one-time transfers and hoping the next media rights deal or the next coaching hire fixes everything. Louisville has to be commended. Again, you're never going to hear me say this for saying out loud what everyone else is whispering. This is broken. Kentucky, though, has to be commended because they're the first school to actually do it. And I think
make an effort.
Make an effort, do something.
Yeah.
Whether it gets fixed depends entirely on whether Congress is willing to act and whether a university president across the country are willing to follow Louisville's lead and say so publicly. Until that happens, Craig, we're watching an arms race funded by student fees, university loans, and borrowed time, and we'll have
donors and donor money.
No,
I just now looked up Arkansas, and they bring in $195 million, and they're showing a $7 million surplus. So, but they've got Tyson money, and they got Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys. Those are their two big benefactors. We got Joe Kraft, and Tyson. I don't know. Joe Kraft might be bigger than Tyson Foods. I don't know, but they're apparently spending their money a little bit better or not paying what we're paying to get these players.
Well, it can't be on the backs of just one person, and it certainly can't be on the backs uh, of the students as well. I mean, we talked about
It
this,
can't be
for
on the
instance,
students.
a Penn State student for a year at the University of Kentucky is now looking at over $50,000 when you add all the fees and the housing
No
expenses and
kidding.
everything else. It's a couple $100,000 when you get out of there. When you add all of your housing and your meal plans and everything else, it is atrocious what it costs to go to these universities. And a lot of that is because of these building ideas and you can't go through Lexington without seeing 10 new buildings being built on
Right.
campus.
Well, when my children went to Northern Kentucky University, they're 2 years apart in age, so they were there for 6 years. Not one time when I went up to NKU did I not see them building new buildings.
Yeah.
They
Well,
never I said, I said, "No wonder it costs so much to go up here." They never stop building, but I guess if the students and the parents are willing to pay it or the banks are willing to loan the money, why not?
yeah. Well, that's going to do it for us tonight. Craig, you got anything to add before we get out of here?
Nope, been an eventful day.
It sure has. What
We
a
had a plane show. I mean, we had a nah, I ain't got nothing. I ain't gonna talk about it. I'm ready.
well,
I'm news full now.
yeah. Well, Craig, thank you as always for joining us through local, national, the heavy, and the important. This show works because of you, and I appreciate it. To everyone watching and listening, thank you for spending your Tuesday, late afternoon, early evening with us. If tonight's show gave you anything, something to think about, hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. About 75% of you have not subscribed, and share this with someone who needs to be above the noise. So until next time, please stay informed, stay sharp, stay above the noise. Good night, everybody. Have a great Tuesday night.